A cruise captain publicly humiliates a black couple at the VIP deck entrance, enforcing exclusive access rules with contempt. But when the truth surfaces about who really owns the ship beneath his feet, his world collapses in front of everyone he tried to impress. The Mediterranean sun hammered down on polished teak decks. Crystal champagne flutes clinked in perfect rhythm. Captain Morrison stood at the VIP deck entrance, arms crossed, his white uniform gleaming like armor. "I'm sorry, but this area is restricted." His voice carried across the laughter and music. Conversations died. Heads turned. Marcus Williams held up 2 cream-colored invitation cards. The embossed gold letters caught the light. "We received these this morning," he said calmly. His navy blazer fit perfectly. His wife Aria stood beside him in a flowing lavender dress, her hand resting on his arm. Morrison barely glanced at the cards. "Those invitations are for premium tier guests only." He emphasized each word slowly, deliberately. "There must have been some confusion about your cabin class." Aria's grip on Marcus's arm tightened. A muscle jumped in Marcus's jaw, but his voice remained steady. "We're in the owner's suite, Captain. Deck 12. Morrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'll need to verify that with guest services." He pulled out his radio, thumb hovering over the button. Behind him, other VIP guests whispered to each other. Some looked uncomfortable. Others leaned closer, phones already recording. "This should only take a moment," Morrison said, his tone suggesting it would take much longer. The radio crackled to life in his hand. Marcus and Aria exchanged a glance. Something unspoken passed between them. Aria's expression shifted, not anger, but something colder. Recognition. "Hey, before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you want to see how this unfolds, hit that like button and subscribe for part 2. 6 hours earlier, Marcus Williams had stood on their private balcony watching the sunrise paint the ocean gold. Steam rose from his coffee mug. Sharia emerged from the suite behind him, wrapped in an ivory robe. "Remember when we said we'd do this?" she asked, sliding her arms around his waist. "Just be passengers. Nobody knowing who we are." Marcus laughed quietly. "You mean nobody recognizing us?" "There's a difference." He turned to face her. "Happy anniversary, love." They'd met 15 years ago at a struggling yacht rental company. She'd been the operations manager, fighting to keep boats maintained. He'd been the financial analyst, trying to save the failing business. They'd saved it together, then built something bigger. Now Meridian Cruise Lines operated 17 ships across 4 continents. They'd poured everything into creating experiences where every guest felt valued. Where luxury meant more than price tags, it meant dignity. "Think anyone suspects?" Aria asked, settling into the balcony chair beside him. "That we own the ship we're sailing on?" Marcus grinned. "Not a chance. We're just Mr. and Mrs. Williams from California, celebrating 15 years. Their suite was understated elegance, soft blues and creams, original artwork on the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing endless ocean. They'd designed these owners' suites themselves, insisting on comfort over ostentation. Aria picked up a cream envelope from the glass table. "This was slipped under our door." She opened it carefully, pulling out embossed cardstock. "VIP deck invitation for this afternoon. Sunset cocktail hour." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Our hospitality team is efficient. We checked in under personal names, not corporate. Should we go?" Aria asked, though her eyes already held the answer. They'd built this company on a principle. Experience your business as your customers do. See the truth when no one knows you're watching. "Absolutely," Marcus said. "Let's see how Captain Morrison runs our premium experiences." He'd approved Morrison's hiring 2 years ago, based on stellar references and 20 years of maritime experience. They'd never met in person. Aria traced the invitation's gold embossing. Their company logo subtle in the corner. "Just another anniversary cruise," she murmured. Marcus kissed her forehead. "Just another cruise. The lie felt comfortable, necessary. In 4 hours they'd understand why they needed to travel anonymously, why their grandmother's words, spoken decades ago over a tiny kitchen table, still guided every decision they made. Morrison's radio crackled. Static, then a hesitant voice. "Captain, the system shows—" "Hold that thought." Morrison cut off the transmission. He studied Marcus and Arya with deliberate slowness. "The owner's suite, you said?" His tone dripped skepticism. "That's correct," Arya replied. Her voice remained pleasant, but something steel-like entered her posture. A woman in a ruby-red cocktail dress whispered to her companion, phone angled toward the confrontation. Others pretended to admire the ocean view while watching intently. The VIP deck's comfortable buzz had become charged silence. Morrison keyed his radio again. Security to VIP entrance. Possible access violation. "Captain Morrison," Marcus said quietly, "this seems unnecessary. Perhaps we could speak with your guest services manager. I am ensuring the comfort and safety of our premium guests." Morrison interrupted. He gestured toward the deck behind him, where guests in designer clothing sipped champagne. "This area maintains certain standards. Surely you understand." The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of discomfort spread through the crowd. An elderly couple near the railing looked away. A young man in a cobalt blue suit lowered his phone, frowning. "We understand standards perfectly," Arya said. Each word was measured, precise. "We respect them deeply." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Then you'll understand why I need to verify your credentials properly. Through appropriate channels." He emphasized appropriate like a weapon. 2 security officers arrived, younger men in crisp uniforms. They looked uncertain, eyes darting between Morrison and the well-dressed couple. One glanced at the invitation cards Marcus still held. "Captain?" the taller officer said. "Guest services confirmed." Morrison raised a hand, silencing him. "I'll handle this personally. Please wait here while I make a call to the front desk." He turned slightly away, phone to his ear. The gesture was dismissive, deliberate. Public, Marcus felt Arya's hand slide into his. Her thumb traced circles on his palm, their private signal. The one that meant, "I see it. I'm here. We handle this together." A little girl in a blush-pink dress tugged her mother's hand, pointing at Marcus and Arya. "Why can't they go in?" she asked loudly. Her mother pulled her away quickly, voice a harsh whisper. "Shh, don't stare." Morrison finished his call. His expression suggested satisfaction. "I'm afraid there's been an error with your room assignment. Guest services is working to resolve it. In the meantime," he gestured toward the main deck, "there are several public areas where you'll be more comfortable." The words hung in the salt air. Phones captured everything. The crowd's energy shifted again. Some faces showed embarrassment, others curiosity, a few ugly agreement. Marcus looked at Morrison directly. "You're refusing us entry." "I'm following protocol," Morrison said. Arya pulled out her own phone, fingers moving across the screen. "I see." She looked up, meeting Morrison's eyes. Something passed across her face. Not anger, calculation. "Marcus, let's go." They turned together, moving with quiet dignity through the parting crowd. Behind them, Morrison's voice rose. "Thank you for your understanding. Now, where were we?" "Champagne, everyone." The party resumed. Laughter returned. But phones stayed out, recording, sharing. The truth spreading like wildfire across social media. Though no one understood yet what truth they'd witnessed, the door to their suite clicked shut. Silence swallowed them whole. Marcus walked to the window. Ocean stretched forever, beautiful and indifferent. His reflection stared back, a successful man in expensive clothes who'd just been told he didn't belong. Arya set her phone on the glass table. The invitation cards lay beside it, their gold embossing catching afternoon light. She'd designed that logo herself. 5 years ago, sitting in their first real office, she'd sketched waves that became infinity symbols. Unity and endless possibility. "He didn't even look at the cards," Marcus said quietly. His voice was steady, but Arya heard the tremor underneath. 15 years together taught you to hear what wasn't said. She moved beside him. Their reflections merged in the window glass. He looked at us, she replied. That was enough for him. Marcus's grandmother had warned him about moments like this. She'd been a housekeeper at a luxury hotel in the 60s, worked 30 years watching people reveal themselves when they thought no one important was watching. Baby, she'd told 10-year-old Marcus, you learn who people really are when they think you're nobody. He'd built Meridian Cruise Lines on the opposite principle. Every guest was somebody. Every interaction mattered. He'd hired staff who understood that luxury without respect was just expensive cruelty. Arya picked up her phone again. Her thumb hovered over the screen. We need to see something, she said softly. Marcus turned. The security feeds? We came here to understand how our company really operates. Arya's voice carried no emotion, but her hand shook slightly. When no one knows we're watching. When there's no corporate oversight. This is what we needed to find. Marcus nodded slowly. They'd traveled anonymously 3 times before. Found beautiful moments, staff going beyond duty, small kindnesses, genuine care. They'd also found problems, inefficiencies, opportunities to improve. But this felt different, heavier. He called security, Marcus. On us in front of everyone. Arya sat down, suddenly exhausted. How many others? How many guests have stood where we stood? The question settled between them like fog. Marcus thought of complaints that never quite made it to his desk. Filtered through management layers, softened, explained away. He thought of Morrison's stellar reviews, his efficiency ratings, his popularity with certain guests. Pull the feeds, Marcus said. His jaw set hard. All of them. Last 30 days, Arya's fingers moved across her phone. Access codes she'd never needed to use. Owners' override protocols built into every system. Insurance against exactly this kind of blindness. The screen filled with thumbnail images. Cameras throughout the ship. She filtered for VIP deck, guest services, public areas. Started scrolling backward through time. Marcus watched over her shoulder. Saw patterns emerge like constellations from chaos. Morrison's interactions. The subtle shifts in his demeanor. How his smile reached different distances, depending on who stood before him. There, Arya whispered. She paused on footage from 5 days ago. And there, and her voice trailed off. They watched in silence. Saw their company through different eyes. Understood what they'd been too high above to notice. Marcus pulled out his own phone. Typed a brief message to their VP of Operations. Emergency review needed. Current location. Discretion critical. Arya leaned against him. Your grandmother was right. She usually was, Marcus replied. Outside their window, the Mediterranean sparkled innocently. Somewhere above them, Captain Morrison was probably pouring champagne for guests who belonged, who fit his definition of premium, who made him comfortable. We're not done yet, Arya said quietly. Marcus smiled without humor. No, we're just getting started. 10 years earlier, rain hammered the warehouse roof. Marcus stood in front of 3 battered yachts, calculator in hand, trying to make impossible numbers work. Harbor Bay Yacht Rentals was bleeding money. Every spreadsheet screamed bankruptcy. Arya emerged from the engine room of the middle yacht, grease on her hands and fury in her eyes. The maintenance logs are fiction, she announced. Half these repairs never happened. Someone's been pocketing the budget. They'd met 2 weeks earlier, both hired to save a dying company. Both too stubborn to admit it was already dead. We could walk away, Marcus had suggested. Arya looked at the yachts, saw what they could be instead of what they were. Or we could buy it. For nothing. Fix it ourselves. Do it right. Marcus's grandmother had laughed when he told her the plan. Then she'd pulled out her savings. Baby, you know what nobody teaches rich folks? How to see people clearly. They look right through housekeepers, drivers, servers. Never really see us. She'd pressed the envelope into his hands. You build something where everyone's seen. Where respect comes first. That's worth every penny. They'd bought Harbor Bay for $1 and assumed debt. Spent 2 years living on ramen and repairing engines. Arya learned business. Marcus learned boats. They learned each other. Their first yacht rental went to a family celebrating a grandmother's 80th birthday. Modest income. Saved for years. Arya personally ensured everything was perfect. Extra champagne, decorations, a sunset route that made the grandmother cry with joy. The family's review went viral locally. Not because of luxury, because of care. "This is how we do it," Arya had said, reading comments from other families who'd felt invisible at high-end establishments. "We make people feel seen." 5 years later, they'd renovated their first cruise ship, small, intimate. 200 passengers. Every staff member trained in their grandmother's wisdom. See people. Really see them. Meridian Cruise Lines grew because word spread about the company, where you weren't just a ticket number, where staff remembered your name. Where a housekeeper's opinion about guest experience mattered as much as a captain's. They'd hired carefully. Checked references obsessively. Built culture through example and intention. But you couldn't interview everyone. Couldn't be everywhere. And talented people sometimes hid ugly truths behind polished resumes and stellar performance metrics. Gerald Morrison had come with impeccable credentials, 2 decades of maritime experience, glowing recommendations, efficiency ratings through the roof. During the hiring process, their HR team had raved about his professionalism. Marcus had approved the hire remotely, signed off based on paper qualifications, never met the man face to face, never saw how his smile changed depending on who stood before him. Present-day Marcus stared at Morrison's personnel file on his tablet. The disconnect was staggering. Perfect metrics, guest satisfaction scores above average, crew efficiency reports immaculate. "How did we miss this?" he asked Arya. She pulled up complaint logs, started filtering by guest demographics. Patterns emerged like cracks in glass. "They never made it through," she said slowly. "Look, guest complaints filed through Morrison's chain of command. He's required to forward them to corporate, but he coded them as resolved at ship level. Company policy says if the captain resolves an issue satisfactorily, it doesn't need executive review." Arya's voice was hollow. "He's been burying them." Marcus felt sick. They'd built systems to catch this, but systems were only as good as the people operating them. Morrison had found the gaps, exploited them, hidden behind procedures they'd created to streamline operations. "Your grandmother would be disappointed in us," Arya said quietly. "No," Marcus replied. "She'd say we found it. Now we fix it." His phone buzzed. "Their VP of Operations en route. Arriving your location in 4 hours. Bringing legal team. What do you need?" Marcus typed back everything on Morrison. Every interaction, every complaint, every decision. No filters. He looked at Arya. "We do this right. By the book. Document everything." "And Morrison?" "He gets exactly what everyone deserves," Marcus said. "Truth, transparency, and consequences." Arya's tablet glowed in the suite's dimming light. Security footage played in split screen. 4 weeks of Captain Morrison's interactions compressed into damning highlights. "Look at this one," she murmured. Their family, father, mother, 2 children, approached the VIP deck entrance. The father held invitation cards. Morrison's body language was completely different. Warm smile. Friendly handshake. Immediate access granted. Next clip. An elderly South Asian couple. Same invitation cards. Morrison's demeanor shifted. More questions. Verification needed. Delayed entry while he confirmed their credentials. Pattern after pattern. Some guests glided through. Others faced obstacles. The difference wasn't ticket class or ship tier. The variable was heartbreakingly obvious. Marcus leaned closer. "Go back to that conversation. The one from last week." Arya rewound. A black woman in her 50s, dressed elegantly, speaking with Morrison near the guest services desk. No audio, but Morrison's expression was carved from stone. The woman gestured at paperwork. Morrison barely glanced at it. He called a crew member, pointed toward public areas. Dismissal clear in every line of his posture. Check her booking record, Marcus said. Arya pulled up the passenger manifest. Dr. Sarah Chen, cardiologist, booked premium Ocean View. Traveled with us twice before. She scrolled through notes. Left a 5-star review last year. Called our ships welcoming. Her voice caught. This was her 3rd trip. She didn't leave a review this time. Marcus's hands curled into fists. Each clip was a small violation. Individually, they might seem like misunderstandings. Aggregated, they formed an undeniable truth. His phone buzzed. VP of Operations. Preliminary findings troubling. Morrison's command has highest staff turnover in our fleet. Exit interviews cited uncomfortable work environment, but HR coded them as personal reasons. Another message followed. 3 formal complaints in last year. All marked resolved by Morrison. No follow-up verification performed. We failed them, Arya said softly. Every person in these videos. We failed them. No, Marcus replied, though the word tasted like ash. Morrison failed them. Our systems failed to catch Morrison, but we're going to fix both. Arya pulled up Morrison's schedule. He's hosting Captain's dinner tonight. Main dining room. 7 o'clock. She looked at Marcus. We're invited. All premium guests are we going? Arya's expression was ice and fire combined. Absolutely. But first, we need to make some calls. For the next 2 hours, their suite became a war room. VP of Operations patched in via video. Legal team joined remotely. They reviewed footage, complaints, patterns, built a case with meticulous care. We can terminate for cause, the legal advisor said. Multiple policy violations. Failure to report complaints. Creating hostile environment. I want more than termination, Marcus said. I want understanding. Every guest he dismissed deserves to know we saw them. We heard them. Even if we were too slow, reach out directly, the VP asked. That's unprecedented. Good, Arya replied. We've been too comfortable with precedent. Time to set new standards. They drafted personal apologies. Not corporate speak, genuine acknowledgement of harm. Each one would include offered compensation, but more importantly, truth. We missed this. We're sorry. You deserved better. Sunset painted their suite orange and gold. Marcus watched the colors shift, remembering his grandmother's hands folding that envelope of savings. The weight of her trust. The simplicity of her wisdom. She told me once, he said to Arya, that you can build the most beautiful hotel in the world. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Gold faucets. But if you don't see your guests, really see them, it's just a beautiful prison. Arya moved beside him. We see them now. Not soon enough, no, she agreed. But we see them now. That has to count for something. Marcus's phone buzzed again. VP of Operations. Staff member reached out independently. Morrison's second in command. Says he has information. Wants to speak directly to ownership. Seems scared. Marcus typed back. Set up secure call. Tonight. He looked at Arya. Ready for dinner with Captain Morrison? She straightened her lavender dress. Checked her reflection. The woman looking back was no longer just a passenger. She was an owner who'd just discovered rot in her foundation. Who planned to cut it out and rebuild stronger? Let's go see how he treats guests when he thinks nobody important is watching, Arya said. They left their suite hand in hand. The ship hummed beneath their feet. Their ship, their responsibility, their chance to prove that his grandmother's wisdom could scale beyond one hotel, one yacht, one interaction. That seeing people, really seeing them, could become more than philosophy. Could become policy, could become justice. The elevator descended toward the main dining room, toward Morrison's captain's table, toward truth that had been hiding in plain sight, toward the moment when a man who'd made himself judge of who belonged would discover exactly how badly he'd miscalculated. The main dining room sparkled, like a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white linen tables. Captain Morrison held court at the center table, his uniform pressed to perfection. He laughed loudly at something a guest in a gold sequined dress said. Marcus and Arya entered quietly, found seats at a table near the windows. Ocean darkness pressed against glass. Morrison's eyes found them across the room. His smile faltered for half a heartbeat, then recovered. He raised his champagne glass toward the room. Welcome everyone to our captain's dinner. We're honored to host our most valued guest tonight. His gaze skipped over Marcus and Arya's table completely. A server approached them, young woman with nervous eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, can I get you anything? Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm sorry about earlier. At the VIP deck. That wasn't right. What's your name? Arya asked gently. Sophia, ma'am. How long have you worked here, Sophia? 6 months. The young woman glanced toward Morrison's table. It's usually wonderful, but sometimes... She trailed off, clearly afraid to finish. Marcus handed her a business card. Plain white. Just names and a private number. If you ever need to talk about anything, call this number. Any time. Sophia looked confused but pocketed the card. Thank you. I'll get your drinks. Morrison rose, moving between tables, shaking hands, posing for photos. His route carefully avoided Marcus and Arya's section. When an older couple at the next table asked about them, Morrison's response carried, All our guests receive appropriate attention according to their service tier. The words were technically correct. The dismissal was absolute. Arya's phone buzzed under the table. VP of Operations, second in command on the line. You need to hear this now. She showed Marcus the message. He nodded slightly. Excuse me, Arya said, standing. Restroom. She walked out of the dining room with unhurried grace. Morrison watched her leave. Something calculating entered his expression. He made his way toward Marcus's table, champagne glass in hand. Mr. Williams. Morrison's tone was pleasant, public. I hope you're enjoying the dinner. I apologize again for the confusion earlier. These things happen when guests upgrade unexpectedly. Marcus looked up calmly. We didn't upgrade. Of course, and Morrison's smile was plastic. Still, I'm sure you understand. Premium areas require careful management. Standards to maintain. He lowered his voice slightly. Between us, some guests take offense when access becomes too open. We cater to expectations. Whose expectations? Marcus asked quietly. Morrison blinked. Our premium clientele, naturally. They pay for exclusivity. I'm simply ensuring they receive what they've paid for. I see. Marcus took a sip of water. And you determine who fits those expectations. Someone has to, Morrison said. His mask slipped for just a moment. Arrogance flickered through. 20 years of experience teaches you to read situations quickly. Know who belongs where. Fascinating, Marcus replied. That must take remarkable judgment. Morrison's chest swelled slightly. It does. Not everyone can handle the diplomatic aspects of command. But it's crucial for maintaining atmosphere. Marcus's phone buzzed. Arya's message, recording everything. Legel says it's gold. Thank you for explaining your philosophy, Captain, Marcus said. Very illuminating. Morrison smiled, completely missing the edge in Marcus's voice. Enjoy your dinner, Mr. Williams. He moved away, satisfied he'd handled an awkward situation diplomatically. Across the dining room, Sophia watched the exchange, then quietly pulled out the business card Marcus had given her, stared at it for a long moment, made a decision. Arya stood on the exterior deck, phone pressed to her ear. The ship's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, spoke rapidly, words tumbling over each other. I should have reported this months ago, Rodriguez said. But Morrison controls all communications to corporate. Everything goes through him. I didn't know how to bypass the chain of command without ending my career. Tell me everything, Arya said. He keeps a separate log, private tablet, notes about guests he calls problem demographics. He assigns them to less experienced servers. delays their requests. Nothing overtly illegal, just death by 1,000 cuts. Rodriguez's voice cracked. I've watched families have their vacations ruined for no reason, except they didn't fit his picture of who should be here. Aria's jaw tightened. Do you have proof? I can access his tablet. He leaves it in his quarters. Password protected, but I've seen him enter it. Rodriguez paused. If you're really corporate oversight, I'll get you everything. But I need protection. He's vindictive. You have it, Aria promised. And, Rodriguez, you did the right thing calling. She ended the call as Marcus emerged onto the deck. How bad? He asked. Worse than we thought. He's systematized it. She relayed Rodriguez's information. We need that tablet before he realizes we're onto him. Marcus's phone lit up with an email notification. Subject line: Urgent owner verification required immediately. He opened it. Ship's security had run a standard audit of premium suite access codes. The owner's suite override protocols had been activated from their room. Corporate automatically flagged any ownership credential use. The email was addressed to Captain Morrison, copied to corporate headquarters, sent 3 minutes ago. He knows, Marcus said quietly, showing Aria the screen. Not everything, Aria replied. He knows someone used owner credentials, but not that we're the owners. Marcus smiled without humor. He's about to find out. They walked back into the dining room together. Morrison stood near his table, tablet in hand, face pale. He was reading something, eyes growing wider with each line. He looked up, saw Marcus and Aria approaching. The tablet nearly slipped from his hands. Captain Morrison, Aria said clearly. Her voice carried across the suddenly quiet dining room. Check your email. The one from corporate headquarters. Sent 90 seconds ago. Morrison's fingers shook as he tapped his screen. Found the message. Subject line: Emergency Board summons ownership compliance review. His eyes scanned the text. Meridian Cruise Line's co-founders Marcus and Aria Chen Williams requesting immediate meeting. All senior staff. Conference room. Owner override authority confirmed. Presence mandatory. The blood drained from Morrison's face. The owner's suite, he whispered. We own this ship, Captain. Marcus's voice was quiet but absolute. We own all 17 ships in the Meridian fleet. We've owned them for 10 years. The dining room had gone completely silent. Every guest, every server, every crew member frozen. Phones rose slowly, recording everything. Morrison's mouth opened, closed, his carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. Conference room, Aria said. 10 minutes. Bring Rodriguez and your senior staff. Don't be late, she paused. That's not a request. They walked out of the dining room, leaving Morrison standing alone. Behind them, the silence erupted into chaos. Whispers, gasps, the frantic clicking of phones sharing, posting, texting. The VIP deck footage was already viral. Millions of views. Hashtags trending. Cruise captain just owned the owners. Justice served. But the people watching didn't know the full story yet. Didn't understand the depth of what they'd witnessed. The systematic discrimination. The buried complaints. The pattern hidden behind procedure. Marcus and Aria walked through ship corridors toward the executive conference room. Their ship. Their company. Their responsibility to fix. Your grandmother would have words for us, Aria said quietly. She'd say we took too long to see, Marcus replied. But we're seeing now. Behind them, Morrison stood paralyzed in the dining room. His career, his reputation, his carefully maintained authority, all of it crumbling. And the worst part was knowing that 2 people he'd dismissed, judged unworthy, turned out to be the very people who'd given him everything, the people who were about to take it all away. Morrison's hands trembled as he walked toward the conference room. Crew members stepped aside, eyes averted. Word had spread like wildfire. The captain who'd refused the owner's entry. The man who'd judged them unworthy. He'd called his wife from his quarters. She'd already seen the videos. The whole world had seen them. Gerald, she'd whispered. What did you do?" He couldn't answer, because he didn't know how to explain what felt so normal until it wasn't. The conference room doors loomed ahead. Through the glass, he saw them. Marcus and Aria Williams. No, Chen Williams. The names he'd signed payroll under, whose signatures approved his bonuses, whose company values he'd sworn to uphold. He'd thought they were just corporate figureheads. Names on paper. He'd never imagined they'd be real people. Passengers, test subjects for their own company. Rodriguez stood in the hallway, avoiding Morrison's gaze. Other senior staff clustered nearby. They all knew. The looks on their faces ranged from anger to pity to cold satisfaction. Morrison stopped walking. For one desperate moment he considered running. Off the ship at the next port. Away from this disaster. Away from accountability. His grandmother's voice echoed from childhood. She'd been a civil rights activist in the 60s, marched, protested, fought for dignity. "Gerald," she'd told him once, "your uniform doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you responsible to everyone." He'd forgotten that somewhere along the way. Let authority become superiority. Let experience become assumption. Let comfort with certain guests become discrimination against others. The tablet in his pocket felt like lead. His private notes, his problem guest list, his systematic approach to filtering who deserved premium treatment, evidence of everything he'd become without noticing. He'd told himself he was maintaining standards, protecting the premium experience, doing what wealthy guests expected. But standing alone in this corridor, watching colleagues turn away, Morrison finally saw the truth. He'd been protecting his own comfort, his own biases, his own small-minded vision of who belonged in spaces he controlled. The conference room doors opened. Aria appeared. "Captain Morrison," she said quietly, "we're ready for you." He walked forward on unsteady legs, through the doorway, into a room filled with people whose respect he'd just lost forever. The door closed behind him with a sound like a coffin sealing. The conference room held 8 people. Marcus and Aria at the head of the table, Rodriguez beside them. Senior staff lined the other chairs. A legal advisor appeared on the video screen. HR director connected remotely, and Morrison isolated at the far end. "A captain without a command. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," Marcus said formally. "Please present your findings." Rodriguez opened his own tablet. His hands were steady now, purpose replacing fear. "For the past 7 months, I've documented Captain Morrison's guest interaction patterns. I didn't have authority to report outside his chain of command. Until tonight, when I learned who to contact, he displayed spreadsheets, color-coded entries, guest service requests from premium cabin holders. Average response time for white guests, 18 minutes. Average response time for guests of color, 2 hours and 14 minutes. The numbers hung in the air like accusations. VIP deck access verification, Rodriguez continued. White guests with standard invitations, immediate entry. Guests of color with identical invitations. Verification requested 63% of the time. Average delay 22 minutes. Morrison stared at the table. His professional metrics, the efficiency ratings he'd been so proud of, exposed as carefully curated discrimination. Complaint resolution, Rodriguez said quietly. 47 formal complaints filed through Captain Morrison's office in the past year. Corporate headquarters received notification of 12. 74% suppression rate. The suppressed complaints? 100% filed by guests of color. Aria pulled up her own files. We've contacted 33 affected guests from the past 6 months. Interviews conducted today. Permission granted to share findings. She pressed play, a voice filled the room. Dr. Sarah Chen, the cardiologist from the security footage. I've traveled with Meridian 3 times because I believed in their values. But this last trip, I was made to feel like I'd stolen my ticket. Like I didn't belong. I thought maybe I was imagining it, another voice. A father traveling with his teenage son. My boy saved for 2 years to afford this cruise. We were so excited. But the staff treated us like threats. Constant questions. Constant verification. My son asked me why they didn't believe we could afford to be there. Voice after voice. Story after story. Each one a small violation that collectively formed a devastating pattern. Morrison's face was grey. I never meant... You meant exactly this, Marcus said quietly. Maybe not consciously. But intention doesn't matter when the impact is systematic harm. Arya opened another file. Your personal tablet. The one in your quarters. Rodriguez provided access codes. Would you like to explain the document titled Guest Management Protocol? Morrison's eyes closed. She read aloud. Tier 1 guests respond better to familiar demographics in service staff. Assign accordingly. That's code for racial profiling, Captain. Elevated verification for unexpected premium bookings. That's assumption of fraud based on appearance. Standard protocols, Morrison whispered. Industry best practices. No, Marcus replied. Your practices. We've reviewed every other ship in our fleet. None of them show these patterns. None of them suppress complaints. None of them treat guests differently based on race. Rodriguez spoke up. I served under 3 captains before Morrison. Not one of them maintained a separate ranking system for guest complaints. Not one of them delayed service based on guest demographics. The HR director's voice came through the video conference. Captain Morrison, we're terminating your employment effective immediately. For cause. Multiple policy violations. You'll be escorted off the ship at our next port in 6 hours. Morrison's career, 20 years of maritime service, ending in a conference room because he'd failed the most basic test of human decency. The guests you turned away, Arya said, will receive personal apologies from us. Full refunds, complimentary future cruises. But more importantly, they'll know we saw what happened, that we take responsibility for not catching this sooner. Marcus leaned forward. And you'll face the real consequence. Not just losing your job, but knowing that you had power and used it to make people feel small. That you took something beautiful, a vacation, a celebration, a dream, and poisoned it with your prejudice. Morrison finally looked up. Met their eyes. I'm sorry. Tell them, Arya replied. Tell every guest you dismissed. Every family you made feel unwelcome. Every person who saved for months to afford a trip, you ruined with your assumptions. Tell them you're sorry. She pushed a piece of paper across the table. We've drafted a statement. Video recorded. Your choice. Read it and own your actions, or refuse and face a much uglier legal battle. Either way, the truth is public now. Morrison took the paper with shaking hands. Read the words that would define his legacy. Public acknowledgement, apology. Admission of systematic discrimination. His grandmother's face flashed in his mind. The disappointment she would feel. The betrayal of everything. He picked up the pen. I'll record it, he said hoarsely. I'll tell the truth, because hiding had stopped being an option the moment he'd underestimated 2 passengers who turned out to own everything he'd taken for granted. The ship's main atrium at 9 p.m. Passengers gathered, summoned by an unusual announcement. All guests please report to the central atrium for an important company message. Curiosity and confusion filled the space. The viral videos had reached everyone. Speculation ran wild. Some demanded refunds, others wanted justice. Everyone wanted answers. Marcus and Arya stood on the central platform, the one usually reserved for entertainment performances. Simple, professional. 2 people in business casual clothes facing hundreds of guests. Behind them, a screen displayed the Meridian Cruise Line's logo. The waves becoming infinity, unity and endless possibility. Good evening, Marcus said. His voice carried through the sound system. My name is Marcus Chen Williams. This is my wife and business partner, Arya Chen Williams. We're the co-founders and majority owners of Meridian Cruise Lines. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones rose. This was being recorded by 300 people simultaneously. Many of you saw what happened this afternoon on the VIP deck, Arya continued. You watched a captain refuse us entry. Some of you recorded it, shared it, made it viral. Thank you. Because that visibility forced us to confront something we should have caught much earlier. She touched the screen. Security footage appeared. The VIP deck incident, but now joined by others. Different guests. Different days. Same pattern. Captain Morrison systematically discriminated against guests of color aboard this ship, Marcus said bluntly. He suppressed complaints, delayed service, created a tiered system based on race, not ticket class. Gasps echoed through the atrium. Some guests nodded, recognizing their own experiences. Others looked shocked. We built this company on a principle, Arya said. That luxury means respect. That every guest deserves to be seen, really seen. We failed that principle. Our oversight systems failed, and dozens of guests suffered because of our failure. The crowd grew quiet. This wasn't a corporate apology. This was raw acknowledgement. Captain Morrison has been terminated, Marcus continued. But firing one person doesn't fix a systematic problem. So here's what we're implementing fleet-wide, effective immediately. The screen changed. Bullet points appeared. Anonymous guest feedback directly to ownership, bypassing all management layers. Quarterly audits of service timing by guest demographics. Public results. Mandatory bias training for all staff. Conducted by external civil rights organizations. Guest Services Advisory Board. 50% members must be people of color. Direct oversight authority. Arya stepped forward. To every guest who experienced discrimination aboard our ships, we're reaching out personally. Full refunds, compensation. But more importantly, we're listening. We're changing. We're ensuring this never happens again. A hand rose in the crowd. The young man in the cobalt blue suit from the VIP deck. What about the other captains? How do we know they're different? Valid question. Sharp question. Marcus nodded. We're conducting identical audits on all 17 ships. Results will be published on our website. Transparent, complete. If we find similar patterns elsewhere, those captains will also face termination. Another hand. An elderly black woman. Why should we believe you? How is this different from corporate damage control? Arya met her eyes directly. Because we're not hiding. We're not making excuses. We're showing you the data, the patterns, the failures, and we're giving you power to hold us accountable. The advisory board isn't symbolic. It has veto authority over captain appointments. Dr. Sarah Chen stood up. She'd been contacted hours earlier. Invited to return for this announcement. I want to believe you, she said. But I've heard corporations promise change before. Words are easy. You're right, Marcus replied. So judge us by actions. Rodriguez, our second-in-command who reported Morrison, is being promoted to interim captain. Not despite reporting a superior, because he put principle over career safety. Rodriguez appeared from the side, looking uncomfortable with the attention. But he stood straight. And Dr. Chen, Arya said, we'd like you to chair our guest services advisory board, if you're willing. Compensated position, real authority. Help us rebuild what we broke. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. You're serious? Completely, Marcus said. The atrium was silent. Hundreds of people processing something unexpected. Not perfection, not denial, but acknowledgement, responsibility. Structural change instead of empty promises. The little girl in the blush-pink dress from the VIP deck incident spoke up, her voice carrying in the quiet. Are you going to say sorry to those people? Like my mom makes me do when I'm mean. Her mother tried to shush her, but Arya smiled. Yes, sweetheart, we are. And thank you for reminding us that it's really that simple. When you hurt someone, you apologize. You do better. That's what we're doing. The father who'd saved 2 years for his son's trip raised his hand. My son and I were treated exactly like you were today. We filed a complaint. Nothing happened. I know, Marcus said quietly. We read your complaint an hour ago. Morrison buried it. We'd like to speak with you both privately after this. Make things right. But also hear your story. Learn from it. The crowd's energy shifted. Not forgiveness exactly. That would take time. But something like possibility. Like maybe these two people standing on stage understood that luxury without dignity was just expensive discrimination. Rodriguez stepped forward. I served under Captain Morrison for 7 months. I saw what he did. I should have reported sooner. I didn't because I was scared. That's on me, but it's also on a system that made speaking up feel impossible. We're changing that system. Starting now. Morrison himself appeared on the screen, pre-recorded. His face was haggard. He read from a statement, voice thick with shame. I'm Gerald Morrison. I was captain of this vessel. I systematically discriminated against guests of color. I told myself I was maintaining standards. I was wrong. I hurt people, families, celebrations, dreams. I apologize. Not because I was caught, but because I finally understand what I did. To every guest I dismissed, you deserved better. You deserved respect. I failed you. I'm sorry. The video ended. The screen went dark. The atrium was completely silent. Then someone started clapping. Dr. Chen, slow, deliberate. Not applause for Morrison. Applause for the moment. For acknowledgement. For change, others joined. Not everyone. Some were still angry. Still hurt. Still skeptical. But enough people clapped to fill the space with sound. With possibility. Marcus and Arya stood together facing their guests. Their company. Their responsibility. We don't expect you to forgive us immediately, Arya said. We just ask you to watch what we do next. Hold us to our promises, and help us build something better than what we had. The crowd dispersed slowly. Some approached Marcus and Arya directly, shared their stories, offered feedback, demanded more details about the oversight board. They listened to every word, took notes, made commitments, did the work of rebuilding trust one conversation at a time, because that's what real change looked like. Not a press release, not a firing, but hundreds of small moments where people felt seen, heard, valued, where luxury finally meant what it should have meant all along. Respect woven through every interaction. Every service, every single guest. 3 days later, the ship docked in Barcelona. Morrison departed with minimal ceremony. No farewell, no honors. Just a man carrying luggage, escorted by security. Cameras capturing his descent down the gangway. Some crew members watched. Others turned away. The message was clear. Discrimination had consequences. Rodriguez, now Captain Rodriguez, gathered the crew that afternoon. Different kind of meeting. Different tone. We're changing how we operate, he said simply. Not because corporate is watching. Because it's right. Every guest gets the same respect. The same attention. The same care. I don't care if they're in an interior cabin or the owner's suite. I don't care what they look like. They chose our company. We honor that choice. Every single time, heads nodded. Some crew members looked relieved. Others thoughtful. A few resistant. Change never came without friction. But the standard was set. Live up to it or find. Marcus and Arya spent those 3 days in constant meetings. With affected guests. With crew members who'd witnessed Morrison's behavior. With corporate team members flying in to implement new protocols. Dr. Chen accepted the advisory board position. She recruited 4 other members, all guests who'd experienced discrimination. All people with perspective earned through pain. We're not letting you off easy, she told Marcus and Arya. We're going to hold you to every promise. Push for more. Demand transparency. Good, Arya replied. That's exactly what we need. On their last evening aboard, Marcus and Arya stood at the ship's bow, the same spot they'd watched sunset from days earlier, before everything changed. Your grandmother would be proud, Arya said softly. Marcus considered that. She'd say we took too long, that we got comfortable being owners instead of staying vigilant as leaders. Maybe. But she'd also say we did the right thing once we saw the truth. The expensive right thing, Marcus noted. Refunds, compensation, new oversight systems. The immediate cost was substantial. Good, Arya replied. Easy change isn't real change. If it doesn't cost us something, we're not doing enough. Below deck, the family Morrison had dismissed weeks earlier enjoyed dinner at the captain's table. Rodriguez had invited them personally. Made sure their vacation ended better than it began. The father's son smiled genuinely for the first time since boarding, took selfies with Rodriguez, talked excitedly about becoming a marine engineer someday. Small moment. Individual redemption, but multiplied by dozens of families, it added up to transformation. Sophia, the young server who'd witnessed the VIP deck incident, approached Marcus and Arya during their final evening. She held the business card they'd given her. I called the number, she said, told them about other things I'd seen. They listened. Really listened. I thought I'd lose my job. Instead, they promoted me. Said speaking up mattered more than hierarchy. It does, Marcus told her. Always has. We just forgot to make that clear. Mr. and Mrs. Chen Williams? Sophia hesitated. Thank you for seeing us, all of us. Not just what happened to you, but what's been happening to lots of people. After she left, Arya leaned against the railing. That's what we almost lost. People brave enough to speak up, because our systems made silence safer than truth. Not anymore, Marcus replied. The Mediterranean stretched endlessly dark beneath stars. Their grandmother's envelope of savings had bought 3 broken yachts 2 decades ago. Now it had bought something more valuable. The painful lesson that building something beautiful meant constant vigilance against the ugliness people could normalize. Tomorrow, they'd fly home. Begin implementing changes fleet-wide, face shareholder questions about costs, weather criticism from those who thought Morrison's firing was overreaction. But tonight, they stood on their ship, truly theirs now, not just in ownership but in responsibility, and felt something like hope. Change wasn't easy. Justice wasn't cheap. Transformation required sacrifice, but it was possible, and worth every difficult, expensive, painful step. 6 months later, the first Guest Services Advisory Board report was published online. 53 pages. Brutal honesty. Meridian's fleet showed improvement across all metrics, but 3 ships still had concerning patterns. 2 more captains were terminated. Marcus and Arya read every page, every criticism, every recommendation. We're getting there, Arya said. Not fast enough, Marcus replied, but his tone held determination, not defeat. Dr. Chen's board had demanded, monthly captain evaluations conducted by randomly selected guests of color. Real-time feedback. Immediate accountability. The advisory board had veto power over new hires, had already rejected 2 captain candidates with excellent credentials, but concerning interview responses about guest compatibility. The changes rippled outward. Other cruise lines watched. Some implemented similar oversight. Others dismissed it as publicity stunt, but guests noticed. Reviews mentioned feeling seen, respected, valued regardless of cabin class or background. Bookings increased among demographics Meridian had historically underserved. Not because of marketing, because of word of mouth from people who'd felt genuinely welcome. Rodriguez thrived as captain. His ship became the model for others. Staff transferred, requesting his command. Guests specifically booked his routes. Morrison disappeared from public view. His video apology had millions of views. Some comments were vicious. Others acknowledged his accountability. Most just hoped he'd learned something. Marcus and Arya stood in their grandmother's old apartment, now a memorial museum for her civil rights work. Her photos lined the walls. Her words preserved in frames. See how people treat those they think have nothing, her most famous quote read. That's who they really are. She knew, Marcus said quietly. That power reveals character. That oversight requires constant attention. That good intentions aren't enough without good systems. Arya touched the frame. She'd say we're not done. No, Marcus agreed. We're never done. That's the point. The moment we think we've arrived, we've already started failing. They left the museum as evening painted the city gold. Somewhere across the Atlantic, 17 ships carried guests who deserved to be seen. Really seen. Not just as revenue or demographics or ticket classes. As people, the work would never end. There would always be new captains to hire, new systems to audit, new biases to confront, new ways that human prejudice would try to hide behind professionalism and procedure. But now they knew to look for it, to create space for people like Rodriguez to speak up, to give power to voices that had been systematically silenced, to remember that luxury built on discrimination was just expensive cruelty. That seeing people really seeing them required more than good intentions. It required vigilance, structure, accountability, and the willingness to tear down what you'd built. When you discovered it sheltered injustice, Marcus took Arya's hand as they walked toward the subway. Two people who'd been refused entry to their own VIP deck because a captain thought he knew who belonged. The irony had been painful. The lesson invaluable. Your grandmother's envelope of savings, Arya said. She gave you money to start a business, but what she really gave you was a principle. That dignity matters more than profit. That seeing people is the only real luxury. Marcus smiled. She'd say we paid too much tuition to learn what she tried to teach us for free. Probably. But we learned it. They descended into the subway. Just 2 more passengers in the evening rush, anonymous, equal. Exactly how they'd started the cruise that changed everything. And somewhere on the Mediterranean, a ship bearing their name cut through moonlit waters. Every guest treated with respect. Every crew member empowered to speak truth. Every system designed to catch discrimination before it could flourish. Not perfect. Never perfect, but better than yesterday. And committed to being better still tomorrow. Because that's what real luxury looked like. Not marble and champagne, but the simple, radical act of treating every human being as if they mattered, as if they belonged, as if they were seen.